Hey guys, tonight we wander into a place where the map lies to you, the sky turns against you, and dinner plans become, well, let's just say you probably won't survive this. You're standing at the edge of everything familiar. Behind you, there's the soft, predictable rhythm of life in the American Midwest. Fields, neighbors, the kind of routine where you know what tomorrow smells like. Ahead of you, though, endless possibility. Or at least that's what you tell yourself. You grip the wooden edge of your wagon, knuckles pale, as the wheels creak forward. The year is 1846, and you're part of a growing wave of pioneers chasing a dream called California. People say the land there is so rich you barely have to try. Just drop seeds and watch them grow like magic. No more harsh winters, no more scraping by. Just sunshine, opportunity, and a fresh start. Sounds legit. The trail stretches out in front of you like a promise. Families travel together, wagons lined up like a slow-moving parade. Children laugh, chasing each other between wheels. Someone hums a tune that gets stuck in your head. It almost feels like a picnic, if your picnic lasted months and involved walking beside oxen that smell like regret. Here's your first reality check. The journey from Missouri to California is about 2,000 miles on foot, or beside a wagon that moves slower than your Wi-Fi when it rains. Still, spirits are high. You've got supplies, flour, dried meat, tools, spare parts. Enough, you think, to last the journey. Everyone thinks that. And then there's the little detail no one likes to dwell on. Most of you have never done anything like this before. You tell yourself it's fine. People are doing this every year now. The trail is practically a highway. What could go wrong? Well, you're traveling with a group led loosely by families like the Donners and the Reeds. Not soldiers, not hardened explorers, just ordinary people who decided, hey, let's cross a continent with minimal preparation and vibes. At night, you sit by the fire, the air cooling fast as darkness settles. The flames flicker, casting long shadows. Someone passes around a tin cup. Coffee, maybe, or something pretending to be coffee. You listen to the conversations, plans, hopes, quiet worries disguised as jokes. California by winter, someone says confidently. You nod, even though you have no idea if that's realistic. Here's a mainstream historical fact for you. Most wagon trains aim to reach the Sierra Nevada mountains before winter. Miss that window and you're in trouble. Big trouble. But right now, winter feels like a distant rumor. The days pass in a rhythm that almost lulls you into comfort. Wake up early, walk, guide the animals, fix something that broke. Repeat. The land changes slowly, rolling plains giving way to something wilder, less forgiving. And then, one evening, the conversation shifts. It starts casually. A man unfolds a letter, worn at the edges. He clears his throat, and suddenly everyone's paying attention. It's from a man named Lansford Hastings. He claims there's a shortcut. Of course there is. According to the letter, this route, called the Hastings Cutoff, can shave weeks off the journey. Weeks! Imagine that! Less time on the trail, less food used, less suffering. It sounds like a miracle wrapped in ink. You lean in, listening as the details are read aloud. The route cuts southwest, away from the established trail, straight toward California. Shorter, faster, better. That's the pitch. Here's the quirky detail. Hastings himself isn't even there to guide you. He's basically like that one friend who recommends a great shortcut and then disappears while you're stuck recalculating your entire life. You shift your weight, glancing at the others. Some faces light up with hope, others tighten with doubt. Has anyone actually taken this route? Someone asks. There's a pause. Not really, but it looks good on paper. And paper, as you'll soon learn, has never walked across a desert. You feel that little knot in your stomach, the one that whispers, maybe this isn't a great idea, but it's easy to ignore. Everyone wants this to be true. Everyone wants the shortcut. Because the alternative? Months more of this slow grind, more chances for something to go wrong. And here's where the tension begins to creep in. Scholars still argue whether the decision to take the Hastings cutoff was driven more by optimism or desperation. Was it hope, or was it impatience dressed up as courage? You watch as debates ripple through the camp. Voices rise, then soften. People break into smaller groups, weighing risks. You try to do the math in your head, but it's all guesswork. There are no GPS signals here, no updated trail conditions, just rumors, letters, and a whole lot of confidence. Eventually, a decision forms. Not at once, but like a tide slowly turning. You're going to take the shortcut. Of course you are, because turning away from it would mean admitting you might be wrong, and nobody wants to do that when they've already come this far. The next morning, the wagon train shifts direction. It's subtle at first, a slight angle, a feeling that the sun isn't quite where you expect it to be. But soon, it's undeniable. You're leaving the main trail. There's no grand announcement, no dramatic music cue, just the quiet creak of wheels as you roll into the unknown. And almost immediately, things feel different. The path isn't as clear, the ground isn't as forgiving. Progress slows. What was once a worn trail becomes something you have to figure out step by step. You find yourself scanning the horizon more often now, searching for signs that you're on the right track. There aren't many. Days stretch longer. The heat presses down harder. You notice the animals tiring more quickly. Even the laughter fades a bit, replaced by shorter conversations, more silence. At night, the stars feel sharper somehow, colder. You lie awake staring up at them, listening to the soft, restless movements around you. Someone coughs. A child whimpers in their sleep. You tell yourself it's just the adjustment. A new route always feels strange at first, right? But then, small problems start stacking up. A wagon wheel cracks. An ox collapses. Progress slows even more. You begin to realize something unsettling. This shortcut isn't saving time. It's costing it. And time out here is everything. You try to push the thought away. It's too early to panic, too early to regret anything. But the land doesn't care about your timeline. It stretches on, vast and indifferent, as if quietly reminding you who's really in charge. By the time the sun sets again, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple, you feel it. That subtle shift from adventure to something else, something heavier. You sit by the fire, barely tasting your food. The conversation is quieter now, more cautious. No one says it out loud, but you can feel it hanging in the air. What if this was a mistake? You glance back the way you came, but the trail is already gone, swallowed by distance, by dust, by the simple fact that you can't rewind a decision like this. So you face forward, because that's the only direction left. And somewhere out there, beyond the unknown miles and the silent, watchful land, winter is already on its way. You just don't know how fast. Not yet. Morning comes without ceremony. No triumphant music, no cinematic sunrise, just a pale wash of light creeping over a land that already feels less friendly than it did yesterday. You stretch, your muscles stiff, and step out into air that carries a faint edge of dryness. It's subtle, but it's there. Like the land is quietly clearing its throat before saying something you won't like. The wagons creak forward again, always forward. You tell yourself this is still part of the plan, just a different version of it. At first, the Hastings cutoff feels like an inconvenience, not a disaster. The terrain grows rougher, sure, but you've handled rough before. There are patches of dense brush, trees that seem determined to block your path like passive-aggressive bouncers. So you cut through them. Literally. Axes come out, men swing, wood cracks, and suddenly your grand shortcut turns into a full-time landscaping project. Hours pass hacking a path that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. Progress slows to a crawl. Here's a mainstream historical fact. The Donner Party lost precious weeks cutting a road through the Wasatch Mountains, time they absolutely could not afford to lose. You feel that now, not as a statistic, but as a dull pressure building in your chest every time the sun dips lower and you realize how little ground you've covered. You wipe sweat from your forehead, streaking dirt across your skin. The air feels thicker here, heavier. Even breathing seems like more work than it should be. Somewhere behind you, someone mutters, "This isn't faster." No one argues, because deep down, everyone knows. Still, the group pushes on, because what's the alternative? Turning back would mean retracing every miserable mile you've already carved through the wilderness. And pride? Oh, pride is a stubborn thing. You notice it in the way people speak now. Shorter sentences, less confidence, jokes that don't quite land. At night, the fires burn lower. Conversations circle the same uneasy topics. Maybe it gets better ahead. It has to. You nod along, even if the words feel thin. Here's the quirky detail. Some travelers along the trail reportedly tried to lighten their loads by abandoning heavy belongings. Furniture, keepsakes, even books, just leaving them behind like breadcrumbs of regret. You pass a discarded chair one afternoon, sitting alone in the dirt. It feels weirdly personal, like someone just gave up on the idea of sitting comfortably ever again. The days blur together in a haze of effort and doubt. Every mile feels earned, not given. You start measuring progress not in distance, but in how exhausted you are. And then comes the descent. Out of the mountains, you expect relief, maybe even a little reward for all the work. Instead, the land opens up into something vast, flat, and deeply unsettling. The Great Salt Lake Desert. It doesn't look like a desert at first, not the sandy, dune-filled kind you imagine. This is something stranger. A wide, pale expanse that stretches so far it almost tricks your eyes into thinking it's water. It's not. It's worse. A crust of salt covers the ground, crunching underfoot. The air shimmers with heat, even early in the day. There's no shade, no clear path, just endless, blinding white. You stop at the edge, squinting. "Is this it?" someone asks. No one answers, because there's nowhere else to go. You take a step onto the salt flats, and it feels like stepping on another planet. The ground is hard, unforgiving. Each footstep echoes slightly, like the land is hollow underneath. The plan is simple: cross as quickly as possible. The reality, not so simple. You start early, hoping to beat the worst of the heat, but the sun climbs fast, and soon it's directly overhead, pressing down like a weight. There's no breeze, no relief, just heat. Water becomes everything. You ration it carefully at first, small sips, measured, controlled. But thirst doesn't care about your plans. It creeps in slowly, a dry throat, a sticky tongue. Then it builds, turning into something sharper, more demanding. The animals feel it too. Oxen stumble, their breaths come heavy, labored. You try to urge them forward, but they're running on empty, just like you. Hours pass, or maybe it's days. Time gets weird out here. The horizon never seems to get closer. You start seeing things. At first, it's subtle, a shimmer that looks like water, a dark shape that could be trees, mirages. Your brain trying to comfort you with lies. You blink and they vanish. Here's where the mood shifts again, from uneasy to dangerous. One of the wagons slows, then stops. An ox collapses, its legs giving out beneath it. It hits the ground hard, the sound dull and final. You rush over, but there's nothing to be done. The animal's sides heave for a moment, then go still. Silence settles over the group. No one says it, but everyone's thinking the same thing. That could be us. You move on because you have to. Leaving the carcass behind feels wrong, but stopping feels worse. The desert doesn't let you linger. Another day, or what feels like one, passes. More animals weaken. Some are abandoned. Supplies get left behind, just like that chair. You start to understand something brutal. Everything you thought was essential is negotiable now, except water, and you don't have enough of it. Scholars still argue whether the Donner Party underestimated the desert itself or simply had no real understanding of what crossing it would require. Either way, the result is the same. You're in it, deep, and it's taking more from you with every step. By the time you finally see the far edge, darker ground, something that looks almost alive, you're barely functioning. Your lips are cracked, your head pounds. Every movement feels delayed, like your body is lagging behind your thoughts. But you keep going, because stopping here isn't an option. When you finally step off the salt flats, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like survival. Barely. You collapse near the edge, the ground beneath you blessedly uneven, real. Someone passes around what little water remains. You take a sip, and it's the best thing you've ever tasted. Around you, the group is quieter than ever. Fewer animals, fewer supplies, less margin for error. You glance back at the white expanse you just crossed. It looks almost peaceful from a distance, harmless even. It's not. It's a warning. And as you sit there, trying to gather what strength you have left, a thought settles in, heavy and unavoidable. If this was the shortcut, what exactly did you cut into? The sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the land. The air cools slightly, but not enough to erase what just happened. You've lost time, you've lost resources, and you're not even close to California yet. Somewhere ahead, the Sierra Nevada mountains wait, tall, silent, and already whispering with the first hints of snow. You don't hear it yet, but it's coming, and you're running out of everything that might help you face it. You don't bounce back from the desert. That's the first thing you notice. There's no heroic recovery montage, no sudden burst of renewed energy. You leave the salt flats behind, sure, but the desert doesn't really let go of you. It lingers in your body, in the way your legs feel heavier, your thoughts slower, your patience thinner. You wake up the next morning feeling like you've already walked 10 miles, and you probably will. The land changes again, trading blinding white for dusty browns and muted greens. Scrub stretches across the ground, low and stubborn. It's not exactly welcoming, but at least it's not actively trying to cook you alive. Small victories. You move forward with what's left of your group. Fewer wagons now, fewer animals, fewer supplies. The losses from the desert aren't just numbers, they're visible gaps. Spaces where something or someone used to be. You notice it in the silence. People talk less, laugh even less. Every now and then, someone tries to lighten the mood, a joke, a story, something to remind everyone that you're still human. It rarely sticks, because there's a new awareness creeping in, settling over the group like a thin layer of dust. You are vulnerable. Not in a vague philosophical way, in a very real, very immediate sense. One wrong turn, one bad decision, one stretch of bad luck, and things fall apart fast. You've already seen it happen. Still, you keep moving, because stopping isn't safer. Days pass, marked by the same routine. Walk, guide, fix, rest, repeat. The rhythm is almost comforting if you don't think too hard about what's ahead. But of course, you do think about it. The Sierra Nevada mountains. Even the name feels heavier now. At night, you hear people talking about them in quieter tones, not with excitement anymore, but calculation, distance, timing, weather. Winter. That word comes up more often now. Here's a mainstream historical fact. By late October 1846, the Donner Party was dangerously late in reaching the Sierra Nevada, weeks behind the ideal schedule to cross before heavy snowfall. You feel that timeline slipping, even if you don't know the exact dates. The air is changing. There's a bite to it in the mornings, a crispness that wasn't there before. You pull your coat tighter, exhaling a small cloud of breath. That's new, and not a great sign. The trail, if you can even call it that, grows more difficult again. Rocky inclines, uneven ground, narrow passes. Nothing as brutal as the desert, but enough to slow you down when speed is exactly what you need. You start noticing the animals struggling again, not collapsing like before, but hesitating, their steps less sure, their strength not quite what it was. You can relate. One afternoon, a wagon gets stuck. The wheel wedges between rocks, refusing to budge. You and a few others gather around, pushing, straining, trying to free it. Your muscles scream in protest. For a moment, it doesn't move. Then, with a sudden jolt, it shifts. You stumble back, breathing hard, hands trembling slightly. It's such a small thing, a single wagon, a single obstacle, but it feels like a preview, because the mountains ahead won't be this forgiving. Here's the quirky detail. Some members of the party reportedly began hiding small personal items in their wagons, little things they didn't want to lose or abandon, even as supplies grew scarce. Trinkets, letters, bits of their old lives. You have something like that too. Maybe it's a folded piece of paper, maybe a small object tucked deep in your belongings. You don't look at it often, but knowing it's there matters. It reminds you that this journey isn't just about getting somewhere. It's about who you were before all this, and whether that person will still exist at the end, if there is an end. The days grow shorter. You notice it in the way the light fades faster, the sun dipping below the horizon before you're ready. Evenings come quicker, bringing colder air and longer shadows. The fires at night feel more necessary now, less optional. You sit close to the flames, hands extended, soaking in the warmth. Around you, people huddle in tighter groups. Conversations are quieter, more focused, practical. How much food do we have left? Can we make the mountains before snow? What if we don't? That last question tends to hang in the air, unanswered, because no one really wants to explore it. You find yourself staring into the fire, watching the embers glow and fade. It's almost hypnotic. For a moment, you can forget where you are, pretend you're somewhere safe. But then the wind shifts, carrying a colder gust through the camp, and you remember. The next morning, you see them. At first, they're just shapes on the horizon, dark, jagged outlines against the sky, easy to mistake for clouds if you squint. But you don't, because you know what they are. The Sierra Nevada. They rise slowly as you approach, growing larger, more defined. Peaks stretch upward, sharp and imposing. Even from a distance, they feel serious, unforgiving. You stop for a moment, just looking at them. This is it, the final barrier between you and California, the last challenge. It would almost be inspiring if not for the timing, because as you watch, you notice something else. White. High up on the peaks, faint but unmistakable. Snow. Your stomach tightens. It's early, too early, or maybe you're just too late. Scholars still argue whether the Donner Party truly understood how close winter was when they first saw the Sierra Nevada, or if they underestimated just how quickly conditions could turn. Either way, you feel the urgency now. It's no longer abstract. It's right there, staring back at you from those distant peaks. The group doesn't need a meeting this time. No long debates, no drawn-out discussions. Everyone knows you have to move faster. And yet, everything around you seems designed to slow you down. The terrain grows steeper as you get closer. The path narrows, winding upward. Wagons creak louder under the strain. Animals pull harder, their breaths visible in the cooling air. You push alongside them, boots slipping slightly on loose ground. Step by step, always up. The air gets thinner, colder. You can feel it in your lungs, in the way each breath seems just a little less satisfying than the last. Behind you, the land stretches out, the desert, the plains, everything you've crossed to get here. It looks so far away now, so unreal. Ahead of you, the mountains loom larger with each passing hour. There's no going around them, only through. By the time you make camp that night, the cold has settled in fully. You wrap yourself in blankets, lying close to the fire, listening to the crackle of burning wood. Someone nearby whispers, "We'll make it." You don't know if they're trying to convince you or themselves. You close your eyes, exhaustion pulling you under. But sleep isn't as easy as it used to be, because in the back of your mind, there's a quiet, persistent thought. What if you're already too late? The wind picks up during the night, brushing against the camp with a low, steady hum. And somewhere, high up in those dark, silent peaks, winter is getting closer. The mountains don't welcome you. They tolerate you, barely. You feel it the moment you truly enter them, not just seeing them from a distance, but stepping into their shadow. The air shifts first. It's colder, sharper, like each breath has edges now. Your lungs notice immediately. You pull your coat tighter again, but it's starting to feel like a weak defense against something much bigger. The trail narrows into something that barely qualifies as a path. Rocks jut out at odd angles, roots twist underfoot, and the incline keeps reminding you that gravity is not on your side. Up, always up. The wagons groan louder now, every turn of the wheels sounding like a complaint. The animals strain, their bodies leaning forward, muscles trembling with effort. You push beside them, boots slipping on patches of loose dirt and stone. It's slower than slow. And time is exactly what you don't have. You can feel that pressure building again, the same one from the mountains before the desert, but heavier now. Back then, you had margin, supplies, strength. Now, you're running on what's left. Here's a mainstream historical fact. The first major snowfall in the Sierra Nevada hit the Donner Party in late October 1846, catching them before they could cross the mountain passes. You don't know the exact date, but you feel the warning signs. The mornings are colder than they should be. Frost clings to the ground, delicate and deceptive, like the world is pretending to be gentle. It's not. You see it in the way people move, stiffer, slower, in the way hands linger near fires just a little longer before setting out. And then, one afternoon, the sky changes. It starts subtle, a few clouds drifting in, thin and harmless looking, the kind you'd ignore on any normal day. But this isn't a normal day. You notice the temperature drop first, just a few degrees maybe, enough to make you pause, glance upward. The light dims slightly. The wind picks up. And then, snow. At first, it's almost beautiful. Small flakes drift down lazily, catching the light. You hold out a hand, watching one land on your skin, melt instantly. Someone laughs softly. "It's nothing," they say. You want to believe that. For a moment, it even feels magical, like a seasonal greeting from the mountains, a reminder that winter is coming, sure, but not here yet, not now. But the flakes don't stop. They multiply, faster, heavier. Within minutes, the ground starts to change. Brown and gray turn to white. Edges blur. The path becomes harder to see. The wagons slow even more. You blink against the falling snow, your breath coming out in visible bursts now. This isn't nothing. The wind sharpens, cutting through your layers. The flakes sting slightly as they hit your face, no longer soft and delicate. The world grows quieter. Snow has a way of doing that, muffling sound, swallowing it whole. The creak of wheels, the voices around you, even your own footsteps seem distant, like you're moving through a dream. Except it's not a dream. It's a problem, a serious one. You push forward, because what else can you do? Stopping here in the open with the snow building, it's not an option. But moving is getting harder. The ground beneath the snow is uneven, unpredictable. You step carefully, testing each footfall. The wagons struggle to find traction. Wheels slip. Animals hesitate. One of them goes down. It happens fast. A misstep, a shift in weight, and suddenly the animal collapses into the snow, legs scrambling uselessly. You rush over with others, trying to help it up. You push, pull, shout encouragement. It barely moves. Its strength is fading, just like yours. Eventually, with a final effort, it gets back on its feet, but you can see it now. It won't last much longer. The snow keeps falling. Hours pass, or maybe it's just one long, endless moment stretched thin. By the time you finally stop to make camp, the world has transformed. Everything is white. The ground, the trees, the wagons, even the path you took to get here is gone. Buried. You stand there for a second, turning slowly, taking it in. This isn't a passing storm. This is something else. You set up camp as best as you can, hands numb, movements clumsy. Fires are harder to start now. Wood is damp. The air is thick with cold. Eventually, flames catch, small and flickering. You huddle close, seeking warmth. Around you, the mood has shifted again, this time into something heavier than doubt. Realization. You're not just delayed anymore. You're trapped. Here's the quirky detail. Some accounts suggest that early snowfalls in the Sierra Nevada could reach several feet deep within days, turning familiar paths into completely unrecognizable terrain. You're seeing the beginning of that now. The path forward? Gone. The path back? Also gone. Just snow stretching in every direction. You sit by the fire, staring into it, feeling the heat on your face, while your back remains cold. It's not enough. Nothing feels like enough anymore. Conversations start again, but they're different now, more urgent, more fragmented. Maybe it'll melt. It has to. We can wait it out. Wait. That word lands heavily, because waiting means using up supplies. Waiting means trusting that this will pass. And what if it doesn't? Scholars still argue whether the Donner Party initially underestimated how permanent the snowfall would be, or if they simply had no better option than to hope for a thaw. Hope. You've been running on it for a while now, but it's starting to feel thin. The next morning, you wake to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind. You sit up slowly, pushing aside your blankets, and look out. More snow. Deeper now. Thicker. It reaches past your ankles when you step into it. Each movement takes effort, your legs lifting higher than usual, your balance slightly off. You look toward where the trail should be. There's nothing there. Just a smooth, uninterrupted blanket of white. Someone tries to scout ahead. They walk a short distance, then come back, shaking their head. I can't tell where to go, they admit. That's when it really hits. Not just you, everyone. You're not moving forward today, or tomorrow, maybe not for a long time. The mountains have made their decision, and you're part of it now. You spend the day reinforcing the camp. Wagons are positioned more deliberately, forming a rough shelter. Branches are gathered, stacked. Fires are maintained as carefully as possible. It feels less like traveling now and more like settling. That realization creeps in slowly, but once it's there, it doesn't leave. You're not passing through the Sierra Nevada. You're staying in it, at least for now. Night falls again, colder than before. The firelight flickers against the snow, casting soft, shifting shadows. You wrap yourself tighter in your blankets, listening to the wind as it moves through the trees. It sounds different up here, lonelier. You close your eyes, trying to rest, but your mind won't settle. Because somewhere beneath the exhaustion, beneath the cold, beneath the fading hope, there's a quiet, growing certainty. This is only the beginning. You wake up hungry. Not the casual kind of hunger you can ignore with a distraction or a cup of something warm. This is sharper, persistent. It sits in your stomach like a quiet, gnawing reminder that something is missing and it's not going away. You try to stretch it off like you would sore muscles. It doesn't work. The snow outside is deeper now. It doesn't melt during the day anymore, just softens slightly before freezing harder at night. The world has settled into a rhythm you didn't choose. Cold, hunger, waiting, repeat. The camp has changed shape over the past days, maybe weeks. Time doesn't behave normally anymore. Wagons are arranged tightly, forming crude shelters. Some people have started building makeshift cabins out of logs and branches, packing snow into gaps like mortar. It's not much, but it's something. You help where you can, your hands stiff and clumsy, fingers numb even through layers. Every movement costs energy, and energy is something you're running low on. Because food is disappearing. At first, the rations were careful, measured, organized. Everyone knew exactly how much there was and how long it needed to last. But that was before the snow stayed, before it became clear that you weren't just delayed, you were stuck. Now the calculations feel different, more desperate. You sit near the fire as a small portion is handed to you, flour mixed with water, maybe a bit of whatever meat remains. It's thin, unsatisfying. You eat it anyway. Every bite matters. Here's a mainstream historical fact. As their supplies dwindled, members of the Donner Party resorted to eating ox hides, boiling them into a kind of gelatinous soup to extract whatever nutrients they could. You witnessed that shift firsthand. At some point, someone suggested, quietly, almost apologetically, "We still have the hides." There's a pause. No one reacts at first, because everyone understands what that means. You take a strip of hide in your hands later, stiff and unappealing. It smells faintly of the animal it came from, mixed with something older, less pleasant. You boil it for hours. The result is not great. A thick, gluey substance that clings to your spoon and resists being called food. But you eat it anyway, because your body doesn't care about taste anymore. It just wants something. Anything. The hunger eases slightly after, but it never fully leaves. It lingers like a shadow just out of sight. And then it comes back, stronger. Days pass, or something like days. The camp grows quieter. Not because there's nothing to say, but because talking takes energy, and energy is precious now. You notice the changes in people. Faces grow thinner, eyes sink deeper, movements slow, becoming more deliberate, more cautious. Even the children are quieter. That might be the hardest part. You try to keep some sense of routine, small tasks, small goals, gather wood, maintain the fire, check on others. It helps, a little, but there's an undercurrent now, something darker, a question no one wants to ask out loud. What happens when the food runs out completely? You push the thought away. You have to, because once you start following it, there's nowhere good it leads. Here's the quirky detail. Some accounts mention that people began to dream vividly about food, feasts, fresh bread, fruit, only to wake up to the same cold reality. You experienced that too. One night, you dream of a table. It's simple, wooden, familiar, covered in food, more than you've ever seen at once. Warm bread, steaming dishes, things you can't even name but somehow know will taste incredible. You reach for it and wake up. Your stomach twists painfully, the emptiness sharper after the illusion. You lie there in the dark, staring up at the rough ceiling of your shelter, listening to the wind outside. It feels unfair, but fairness doesn't apply here. The snow keeps falling, on and off. Even when it stops, it doesn't leave. It just sits there, heavy and unmoving like a weight pressing down on everything, including you. A decision starts to form in the camp. At first, it's just whispers. We can't stay here forever. Someone has to go for help. You hear it in fragments, piecing it together. The idea is simple in theory. A small group leaves, crosses the mountains on foot, and reaches California. They bring back help. Rescue. It sounds reasonable until you think about what that actually means. Walking through this, in this, with almost nothing. You look out at the snow, the endless white stretching into the distance, the mountains rising beyond. It doesn't look possible, but staying here? That's starting to look impossible too. Scholars still argue whether the decision to send out a rescue party, later called the Forlorn Hope, was a calculated risk or a last desperate gamble. From where you sit, it feels like both. You watch as people begin to volunteer, not eagerly, but deliberately. They know what they're signing up for, or at least they think they do. You feel the pull of it, a quiet voice asking if you should go, if you should be part of the group that tries to break through, to find help. But another voice, maybe stronger, tells you to stay, to conserve what little strength you have left, to wait. It's not an easy choice. None of them are anymore. The day they leave, the air is painfully cold. You stand with the others, watching as the small group prepares. They wrap themselves in whatever layers they can manage, gather what little food remains to spare. It's not much, not nearly enough. They look thinner than they should, weaker, but there's something else in their expressions too. Determination, or maybe just acceptance. You exchange quiet words, small nods. There's no big speech, no dramatic farewell, just understanding, because everyone knows the odds. You watch as they step out into the snow, their figures small against the vast white landscape. Step by step, they move away from the camp, from you. At first, you can still make out individual shapes, movements, the way they lean into the wind. Then they grow smaller, blurrier, until eventually they're gone, swallowed by the snow. You stand there a little longer than you need to, staring into the distance, as if they might reappear. They don't. Behind you, the camp remains. Fires flicker weakly. People move slowly, conserving energy, waiting. Always waiting. You turn back, your breath visible in the cold air, and return to your place near the fire. The hunger is still there. The cold is still there. But now there's something else added to it. A thin thread of hope. Fragile, uncertain, carried by a group of people walking into the mountains with almost nothing left. You sit down, pulling your coat tighter, and stare into the flames. Because now, more than ever, everything depends on them.
You try not to think about them, the ones who left. But that's almost impossible. Every time the wind shifts, every time the trees creak under the weight of snow, your mind drifts back to that line of figures disappearing into white. You imagine where they are now, how far they've made it, whether they're still moving, whether they're still alive. You shake the thought away, focusing instead on what's in front of you, because life in the camp hasn't paused. It's just narrowed. Everything revolves around survival now, not progress, not plans, just getting through the next hour, the next stretch of cold, the next wave of hunger. You wake, you endure, you rest. Repeat. The snow has become part of everything. It seeps into your routine, your thoughts, your bones. Even when you're inside the shelter, you feel it, pressing down from above, surrounding you on all sides. The fires are your only real defense. You guard them carefully. Wood is harder to find now. Nearby branches have already been stripped. You and a few others venture farther out, stepping carefully through the deep snow, searching for anything burnable. Each step is effort. Your legs lift higher, sink deeper. The cold bites through your boots. Your breath fogs thick in front of you. You gather what you can. It's never enough. Back at camp, the fires burn low, carefully managed. Too big and you waste fuel. Too small and the cold creeps in faster. Balance. Everything is about balance now, except hunger. Hunger doesn't balance. It grows. The hides are almost gone. What little remains is boiled down into thinner and thinner portions. You chew slowly, trying to make it last, but your body knows better. It always wants more. You notice the changes in yourself more clearly now. Your movements are slower, like you're moving through thick air. Standing up takes effort. Even thinking feels heavier, like your mind has to push through something just to form a clear idea. You catch yourself staring sometimes, at the fire, at the snow, at nothing. Minutes pass without you realizing. Here's a mainstream historical fact. By midwinter, starvation had become severe in the Donner camps, leading to extreme physical weakness and impaired decision-making among survivors. You feel that too, not as a headline, as a dull fog settling over everything. It makes time strange. It makes choices harder. It makes everything quieter. But even in that quiet, something begins to shift. It starts as whispers again, soft, careful, almost afraid to exist. You hear it one night, sitting near the fire, wrapped in blankets that don't quite hold the warmth. We can't keep going like this. A pause. We won't last. No one responds immediately, because everyone knows where that conversation leads, and no one wants to walk there first. You stare into the fire, watching the flames flicker, twist, collapse inward. Your stomach tightens, not just from hunger this time, from understanding. Days pass. The whispers grow louder, more frequent, less avoidable. You see the way people look at each other now, not openly, not directly, but in quick, flickering glances that linger just a second too long. Assessing, measuring. It's subtle, but it's there. Here's the quirky detail. Some survivors later described how the psychological toll of starvation altered their perception of normal boundaries. Things that once felt unthinkable began to feel discussable. You feel that too, not as a sudden change, but as a slow erosion. Lines blur, certainties fade. The idea, the one no one wanted to name, moves closer to the surface, until eventually it's there, spoken, quietly, carefully, but undeniably. Cannibalism. The word hangs in the air like something alive. You don't react right away. You can't. Your mind resists it, pushing back, trying to reject the idea outright. This isn't you. This isn't who you are. But then another thought follows, colder and more persistent. This isn't normal. Nothing about this is normal. Scholars still argue whether the shift towards cannibalism in the Donner camps was driven purely by survival instinct or shaped by the extreme psychological stress of prolonged starvation and isolation. From where you sit, it doesn't feel like a choice in the way choices used to feel. It feels like a corner, and you're in it. You don't act on it immediately. Most don't. There is a hesitation, a line people try to hold on to as long as possible, even as hunger claws deeper, even as bodies grow weaker. But the line, it doesn't hold forever. Someone dies. It's not dramatic, not sudden, just a quiet fading. A person who was there yesterday isn't today. The camp absorbs it in silence. Grief is still there, but it's muted, dulled by exhaustion. and beneath it, something else. You don't look directly at it, but you know. The decision, when it comes, is not loud. It's not argued over. It's made in silence, in glances, in the unspoken understanding that this is the only way forward, or at least the only way to last a little longer. You sit by the fire, hands trembling slightly, staring at the flames. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to understand it, but you do, because hunger has a way of rewriting things, of reshaping what feels possible, what feels acceptable, what feels necessary. You take a breath, slow and shaky. The air is cold, sharp in your lungs. Around you, the camp continues, quiet, fragile, held together by routines that barely function anymore. But people are still here, still breathing, still trying, and now surviving in a way that would have been unthinkable not so long ago. You close your eyes for a moment, the fire's warmth flickering against your face, because thinking too hard about it doesn't help, doesn't change anything. It just makes the cold feel colder, the hunger feel sharper, the silence feel heavier. So you focus on the next moment, the next breath, the next flicker of flame, because that's all there is now. And somewhere, far beyond the snow, beyond the mountains, beyond this frozen, quiet world, the ones who left are still out there, walking, struggling, trying to reach help. You don't know if they'll make it. You don't know if anyone will. But you hold on to that thin thread anyway, because without it, there's nothing left to hold. Time stops meaning anything. Not in a dramatic, philosophical way, just practically. Days and nights blur together until you're no longer sure how long you've been here. A week? A month? Longer? It doesn't matter, because every day feels the same. Cold, hunger, waiting. And yet, something changes. Subtle at first, then undeniable. You wake one morning to a sound you haven't heard in what feels like forever. Voices. Not the quiet, exhausted murmurs of your camp, but something sharper, louder, different. You sit up slowly, your body protesting the movement, and listen. For a moment, you think you imagined it. Then you hear it again, a shout. Your heart stutters. You push yourself to your feet, stepping out into the snow, your breath catching in the cold air. Others are emerging too, blinking, uncertain, drawn by the same fragile hope. And there they are, figures moving through the trees. At first, they look like ghosts, shapes against the white, unreal after so much isolation. But they're real. Rescuers, the first rescue party. For a second, no one moves. It's like your mind needs time to catch up, to process what your eyes are seeing. Then, everything breaks at once. People cry out. Some stumble forward. Others just stand there, frozen, not from the cold, but from disbelief. You feel it too, that surge of something you almost forgot how to recognize. Relief. It hits hard, almost overwhelming. Here's a mainstream historical fact. The first rescue party reached the stranded Donner Group in February 1847, months after they had become trapped in the Sierra Nevada. February. You don't need to know the month to understand what that means. You made it through weeks, months of this. Barely. The rescuers move carefully, taking in the scene. Their faces shift as they see the camp, the condition of the survivors. You notice it, that flicker of shock, of understanding, because what they're looking at isn't just a group of stranded travelers. It's what happens when survival is pushed too far. They bring food, real food, small amounts at first, cautious. They know what happens when starving bodies take in too much too quickly. You take what you're given, hands shaking, and eat slowly. It tastes unreal. After everything, something so simple feels overwhelming. Your body reacts almost immediately, warmth spreading, a faint return of strength. It's not enough to fix everything, but it's a start. The rescuers explain the plan in pieces. They can't take everyone at once. The journey back through the mountains is still dangerous, even now. So they'll take some, then come back. Trips, multiple. It makes sense. It also means weighing. Again. But this time, it's different, because now waiting has an end. You watch as the first group prepares to leave. They're the weakest, the ones who need help the most. They're supported, guided, helped along. You consider going with them too. Part of you wants to leave this place behind immediately. But another part, quieter, steadier, tells you to wait, to let those who need it more go first. So you stay. The camp shifts again, but not back to what it was. It can't. Too much has happened. Too much has changed. Here's the quirky detail. Some rescuers later reported that survivors were so weak they could barely walk, requiring physical support just to move short distances. You see that now. Feel it in yourself, too. Even standing for too long is exhausting. Recovery isn't instant. It's slow, fragile. The first group leaves. You watch them go, just like you watched the forlorn hope disappear weeks ago. But this time, it feels different, because this time, they're going towards safety. Days pass, then more voices, another rescue party, more food, more movement. The process repeats. Each time, the camp grows smaller, quieter, lighter in a strange way, but also emptier. You start to recognize a new feeling, something you didn't expect. Reluctance. This place, as terrible as it is, has become familiar. You've survived here, endured things you never imagined. Leaving it feels like stepping into another unknown. But this is a better unknown. You remind yourself of that. Finally, it's your turn. You gather what little you have left. There isn't much. Most of what you brought on this journey is gone, used, lost, abandoned. You take one last look at the camp, the shelters, the fire pits, the snow that has defined your world for so long. It's quiet now, still, like it's holding on to everything that happened here. Scholars still argue whether the psychological scars left by the Donner Party's ordeal were as lasting as the physical ones, whether survivors ever truly left the mountains behind, even after they were rescued. You think about that as you turn away, because part of you knows you won't either. The journey out is hard, but different. You're not guessing anymore. You're following, guided, supported. Step by step, you move through the snow, through the trees, retracing a path that once trapped you. The mountains don't feel smaller, but they feel less final. Eventually, the snow thins, the air shifts, and then one day you step out of it, out of the Sierra Nevada. The world beyond feels almost surreal. Colors return, sounds feel louder. Life continues. It's strange. After everything, the world didn't stop. It just kept going. You're given more food, more rest, care. Your body slowly begins to recover. But your mind, that takes longer, much longer. Because what you experienced here doesn't just fade. It settles, stays with you. You remember the desert, the snow, the hunger, the choices, all of it. And you realize something quietly, without needing to say it out loud. You survived, not because it was easy, not because you were prepared, but because somehow you kept going, even when everything around you said you shouldn't. You lie down that night, somewhere safe, somewhere warm, and for the first time in a long time, you let your body relax fully. No tension, no waiting, just rest. And as sleep finally comes, soft and steady, you leave the mountains behind, at least physically. The night settles gently around you now, quieter than before, softer somehow. The wind that once howled through frozen trees is gone, replaced by something calmer, something distant and almost kind. You can still picture it, though. The endless white, the slow creak of wagons, the quiet, heavy silence of snow falling without end. But it feels farther away now, like a memory fading at the edges. You breathe a little deeper, a little easier. The story lingers, of course, it always does, not as something sharp or overwhelming, but as something quieter, like an echo, a reminder of how fragile things can be and how strong they sometimes have to become. You imagine the mountains again, standing tall under a pale sky, holding their secrets in the snow. They don't change, they don't explain, they just are. And you made it through them somehow. Your thoughts slow, drifting like those first soft flakes you saw before everything changed. There's no rush now, no urgency, just the steady rhythm of rest. So let your mind settle. Let the images soften. Let the cold fade into something distant and manageable. You're here, you're safe, and the journey, for tonight at least, is over. End of script. Good dreams.